On the morning of December 6, 1917, the people of Halifax crowded to their windows to watch a ship burn in the harbor. 20 minutes later, 1,782 of them were dead, and the fire they came to watch is the reason hundreds of them never saw again. The ship was the Mont-Blanc, a French cargo steamer. She had arrived the night before, too late to enter the harbor before the anti-submarine nets were raised for the night. It was the third year of the First World War, and Halifax was one of the busiest ports in the world. This is her cargo manifest: TNT, picric acid, guncotton, and on her deck barrels of benzol, a highly flammable fuel stacked topside because there was no room for it below. The Mont-Blanc was, in effect, a floating bomb. Almost nobody in the city knew she was there. Coming the other way was the IMO, Norwegian, empty, on her way to New York to collect relief supplies. She was running late, and she was running above the harbor speed limit. At about 8:45 in the Narrows, the two ships found themselves converging. Signals were exchanged. Both tried to correct, and at the last moment the IMO reversed her engines, which swung her bow directly into the Mont-Blanc's #1 hold. It was not a violent collision. On any other ship it would have been paperwork. But the impact tore open the benzol barrels on the deck, the spilled fuel found a spark, and the Mont-Blanc began to burn. The fire burned for about 20 minutes, and in those 20 minutes Halifax came to watch. A burning ship was a spectacle. Office workers went to the windows. Children were lifted to the glass. Crowds gathered on the streets and the docks. Almost none of them knew what was in the hold. One man did know. Vince Coleman was a train dispatcher, working in the rail yard a few hundred meters from the burning ship. A sailor told him what the Mont-Blanc was carrying, and Coleman ran. And then he stopped, and he turned around and went back, because he remembered that a passenger train was due into Halifax within minutes. He sat back down at his telegraph key and sent this: "Hold up the train. Ammunition ship afire in harbor making for Pier 6 and will explode. Guess this will be my last message. Goodbye, boys." At 4 minutes and 35 seconds past 9, the Mont-Blanc detonated. She released the energy of roughly 2.9 kilotons of TNT. It was the largest explosion human beings had ever made, and it would hold that record until the atomic bomb. Vince Coleman was killed at his post. The train stopped, and the blast wave reached the windows first, so hundreds of the people who had come to watch the fire were blinded by the glass in front of them. Then the water came back. The blast had shoved the harbor aside, and the sea returned as a wave 18 meters above the high water mark. It carried the IMO, a ship, up onto the shore. On the far side of the Narrows it erased Turtle Grove, a Mi'kmaq community that had lived there for generations. 9 bodies were recovered. 11 people are known to have survived. When the counting was finished, 1,782 people were dead. Around 9,000 were injured. A large part of the north end of Halifax simply no longer existed. And then, the next morning, it began to snow. A blizzard buried the city under 41 centimeters of heavy snow. The relief train stalled. The people digging survivors out of the rubble were digging in a snowstorm. The news went out along the wires, and it reached Boston. Help came from many places, but the help Halifax never forgot came from Massachusetts. The Boston Red Cross and the state's Public Safety Committee assembled a relief expedition and sent it north, with doctors, nurses, and supplies, into a city that was burning and buried in snow. The following Christmas in 1918, Halifax sent Boston a Christmas tree, a thank you note in the shape of a tree. It was meant as a one-off, and then in 1971, somebody remembered, and Nova Scotia started doing it again, every year deliberately. Every December, a tree is cut in Nova Scotia and driven 1,000 kilometers to Boston, where it stands on Boston Common as the city's official Christmas tree. Not a replica, not a tradition invented for tourists. The actual continuing thank you for a week in 1917. The plaque where it stands says it plainly. Nova Scotians will never forget this act of kindness. A city that lost 1,782 people in 20 minutes has spent a century saying thank you every single December. And most of the people standing under that tree have no idea what it is for.